All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a look inside the master plan of VietDak, a huge player in Vietnam's coffee scene. And they have a plan for 2026 that is so ambitious, it's not just about them. It could change the game for the entire country. We're talking about a massive 242 trillion VND bet. So let's get into it.
And that's really the core question here, isn't it? This isn't just about getting bigger. We're talking about a total transformation, from being a simple supplier of raw beans to becoming something completely different. So how on earth are they planning to pull this off?
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll set the scene and look at the pressures and opportunities in Vietnam's coffee market. Then we'll get into VietDak's new vision, check out the incredible numbers behind their plan, and figure out what this knowledge industry thing is all about. And finally, we'll see how it all leads to that 242 trillion VND goal.
Okay, first things first. To really get why VietDak is making such a massive move, you have to understand the world they're operating in. Right now, the country's coffee industry is at a major fork in the road, with a huge opportunity on one side and a really serious threat on the other.
So the market is absolutely on fire. Global coffee prices are up, and Vietnam is pulling in record-breaking revenue. This has created what their strategy calls a golden window of opportunity. It's the perfect moment to stop just shipping raw beans and start adding real value. But here's the catch. High prices mean farmers are holding onto their coffee, hoping prices go even higher. That makes the supply chain unpredictable, which is a huge risk if you're a major exporter.
And then there's the threat. It's a big one. The European Union has a new regulation called the EUDR. Basically, by the end of 2026, companies have to prove with data exactly where their coffee came from and that it didn't cause any deforestation. If you can't prove it, you're locked out of the entire EU market. Simple as that. The clock is definitely ticking.
So you've got this pressure cooker situation, right? Wild prices on one hand and strict new rules on the other. It forces a choice. Do you stick with the old way of doing things, just exporting raw stuff, living with tiny profit margins and being at the mercy of the market? Or do you take a new path and become a modern, data-driven company that builds a brand and actually makes some real money? For VietDak, the choice was a no-brainer.
And this is their answer. This is where it gets really interesting. VietDak is betting the farm on a totally new vision for itself. It's a complete reinvention, a shift from just selling beans to, well, industrializing brains. The heart of their whole strategy is this idea of a coffee knowledge industry. Now, that sounds a little strange, I know, but what it really means is using technology and data to master and standardize every single step of the coffee journey, from the data on the farm to the exact recipe for a product, all the way to how customers are buying it.
Their whole plan rests on three main ideas. First is scale. They need to keep their raw material business huge because that's the cash engine that funds everything else. Second, value add. They're going all in on growing the more profitable side of the business like roasted and instant coffee. And third, the real game changer, knowledge industrialization. This is the brain of the operation, using data to control everything from start to finish. Okay, so that's the big idea. But let's talk numbers, because this is where you really see just how massive this plan is. A vision is great, but they've backed it up with some seriously ambitious targets.
The big headline number? 1 million tons. Now let that sink in for a second. The entire country of Vietnam is expected to produce about 1.86 million tons of coffee. This one company is aiming to handle a volume that's more than half of the nation's total output. The scale is just mind-boggling.
But here's the really smart part. It's not just about sheer volume. You have to look at the breakdown. Sure, 700,000 tons is still raw beans for export. That's the cash engine we talked about. But check this out. 300,000 tons are now going to be higher value products. And that 200,000 tons of roasted coffee, that's not just a product. That's them building a brand. It's a huge strategic shift.
And all of this, the scale, the shift to value-added products, it's all designed to hit that massive number from our title, a revenue target of 242 trillion Vietnamese dong. That's the financial endgame for this whole strategic map.
So that term, knowledge industry, it still sounds a little fuzzy, right? How do you actually build something like that? Well, they've broken it down into a really concrete 5-layer framework that's all about data.
Think of it like building a system, layer by layer. It starts at the very foundation, the farm. They're digitizing everything about their raw materials. Then you build on that with quality, creating standard profiles for how coffee should taste and perform. Next, you have to know your own products inside and out.
every single one with its own cost and profit breakdown. From there, it's about the market, tracking every sale. And finally, the top layer, using all that data to actually manage the business with dashboards and KPIs.
And listen, these aren't just suggestions, these are hard and fast rules they've set for 2026. 100% of exports have to be traceable. That's how they solve that EUDR problem we mentioned. And 100% of their products need their own profit and loss statement. This is how you force a company to transform from an old-school trader into a modern, data-first business.
Okay, so let's bring it all home. Why go through all this incredible effort? Well, this last part connects all the dots, and it all comes down to one thing: making more money, and doing it in a smart, sustainable way.
And this chart says it all. This right here is the aha moment. Just look at the difference in profit margins. Shipping raw beans gets you maybe 8 to 10%, but by processing that coffee into roasted or instant, you're tripling your margin, jumping to over 20, even 30%. This single chart explains the entire financial reason for this massive shift.
And it's not just about that big revenue number either. The whole plan is built on serious financial discipline. They're targeting massive net profits, yeah, but also really strong returns on their equity and assets. It shows the goal isn't just about getting bigger, it's about getting a lot smarter and more efficient with their money.
You know, if you wanted to boil this entire strategy down into just one sentence, this quote from their own summary absolutely nails it. 1 million tons is scale. 200,000 tons roasted is brand. Increasing deep processing is value. The knowledge industry is sustainability. It's perfect, right? That lays out the entire logic in 4 simple steps.
Which leaves us with one last big question. VietDak is making a huge bet that it can completely transform itself. But if they actually succeed, their blueprint for moving from raw commodity to a high-value, data-driven business could literally create a new path for Vietnam's entire coffee industry. This is way bigger than just one company. So you have to wonder, can they really pull it off?